everybody. Pastor Greg here. It's so good to see you yet again. I'm excited about life, and I hope that you are too. I want to share a couple things with you. First, shout out to our family and friends in Australia. Shout out to our family and friends in the Philippines. But most importantly, I want you all to know about something that's happening this month. This is March, which means that it's our anniversary month. And at the end of this month, on March 27th, we will be celebrating our third anniversary. Not only will we be celebrating our third anniversary, but it's also Easter Sunday. So if you're in the area, if you can get here on March 27th, we want to see you in the building. I'm expecting it to be packed. I'm expecting it to be jammed, and I'm expecting it to be amazing. So please save the date, March 27th. Doors open at 10:30. We start promptly at 11 a.m. Because it is March, that also means we're in a new message series. Let's get into today's message. Not the events of your life. OMG. Thank you, Soul 21. Thank you, David. Thank you, Will. I love that song. Love that song. First time I heard it, it just stopped me in my tracks. Love it, love it, love it. Well, here we are in a new month. And Roy has so brilliantly given us the synopsis. 100% guaranteed. And it's anchored on this idea from A Course in Miracles that your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. 100% guaranteed. And that's a very revolutionary, it's a very radical idea. It may be first time many of us are hearing this. And one thing I want us to consider and think about as we go through this series, there's a profound opportunity for healing. Yes. Profound opportunity for healing. And so I'm wondering if we can just affirm right here and right now, I am open and available to my healing. I am open and available to my healing. Let's say that again. I am open and available to my healing. I am open and available to my healing. Okay, beautiful. So there's a couple things that I just want to get out of the way first and foremost, because this idea of sinlessness, again, it's radical. We don't really find it many places. We find the idea in many places, but the way that it's very authoritatively spoken in A Course in Miracles, that your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. There's a couple things we have to get out of the way because it immediately brings up some thoughts. Wait, sinlessness, right? I was taught that I'm sinful and everybody's sinful, right? So the first thing is one thing that I talk about all the time, and so I just want to check in from a show of hands. Are we clear about the Adam and Eve story and the creation story and why that has nothing to do with who and what you are? That story has nothing to do with you being sinful? Just show of hands, because I would love to touch on it if we need to touch on it. All right, I'm gonna touch on it because I don't see enough hands up. And that's important, right? Because again, we're just gonna get a few things out of the way. This will bless your life. You may wanna run all around the room after you hear this, right? So the Adam and Eve story. Now the first thing we must understand, and if you've been around CSC long enough, you know this, that when we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about the Bible from the perspective of metaphor, allegory, and myth. Not myth in the sense of falsity, but myth in the sense of that it's a story that symbolizes something, right? And so what we're reading in Scripture, it's psychological, it's physical, it's astrological, but it's not necessarily literal, right? So this story of Adam and Eve, it's very interesting because when we look at it, again, recognizing that it's a metaphorical story, recognizing that it's an allegorical story, we understand and we see something that's very clear that happens. First and foremost, there are two creation stories. So if you look and go back to Genesis chapter 1 and 2, in the first creation story, we have that 7-day story that, God said, let there be light, and there was light, and then God created the water and all these different things, and then God created man and mankind, humankind, after its likeness and image, male and female, and said it was good, and God rested. That was it. No garden, no serpent, no tree, no fall, no apple. God created humankind, male and female, in its likeness and image and said it was good and rested. End of story. So right there, if we just accept that creation story alone, nothing about that says anything about you being sinful. Nothing about that says that you're sinful. There's no apple, there's no serpent, there's no temptation, right? But then we have this second story. And the reason that you know it's a second story and it's different because actually the order of creation is different. Because in the second story, as we know, God creates Adam and then allows Adam to name the animals, right? Creates the animals second, and then Adam names the animals. In the first story, the animals are created before Adam and Eve, humankind, male and female. So we have the second story, and then the second story we have what we know, right? That there's the apple. God said, don't eat of this tree. The serpent convinces them. They eat of the tree, okay? Now we would think that because they disobeyed God, that means that there's something wrong, but it's something very clear and interesting in the story that first it says God was walking around the garden. God is an energy, God is a vibration, God is not a person that walks around a garden. So we know that, again, it's a story, it's an allegory, it's a myth, right? It's using this human idea that we have, right? But anthropomorphizing God in this sense as someone who can walk around a garden. God is walking around and he's looking for Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are hiding. Why are they hiding? Because they believe, or they've now become aware of their nakedness. And he calls out for them, and they say, we're hiding. And he says, why? He says, because we're naked. God asks a very profound question. Who told you you were naked? Hear this. Who told you you were naked? In other words, I as God, I as this thing that created you and loved you, I'm not seeing you that way. Yeah. In that moment, I'm not seeing you that way. But the punishment, what happened is, because you believe that there's something wrong with you, you can no longer be in paradise. Yes. That was the metaphor, and that's what that story was teaching. Now we know that on another level. Why? Because there's an angel that's placed in front of the garden, right? And that angel is in the east. The east is the right side. The right side, as we know, represents this place of enlightenment. It represents the place that when we're in meditation, we leave the left reasoning analytical side and move to the east, the right side, the side of light. The reason why the cherubim, that angel, was sitting at the east was because they had blocked themselves from the reality of their wholeness. They had blocked themselves from the reality of all that they really were. And so as long as you believe that story, you can no longer be in paradise. Yeah. But it was not a judgment about all of humanity that we're wrong, bad, sinful, not good, and because of Adam's sin, we all are sinful. That's not what that story was about. So we got to get that out of the way. Okay? So now some of us may be saying, oh, wow, Adam and Eve, okay, that was cool. I never heard that. And that's interesting. But, this Bible says a lot of other stuff. Okay, all right, you got me there, right? But what about the all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? What about we are born in sin and shapen in iniquity, right? The Bible is very clear that there's something wrong with us. But you're saying it's 100% guaranteed by God that we're sinless, right? Now, if you were here for Easter a couple years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, you are the Son of God is the message that I preached. I broke this down, but I want to get it here. We need to establish this foundation in order to move on. So this idea, now, first of all, sin, the word sin. In the New Testament, this Greek word sin is actually an archery term. And it simply means to miss the mark. So if I'm an archer, I pull my bow, and I miss the bullseye, I sinned. That's what it is. Now that's a different energy, right? Can you feel that? It's a very different energy than you're condemned to hell by God, right? That's not what that word was really signifying, right? I love in A Course in Miracles, it says sin is an error that can be corrected. But let's get deeper into these verses. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We are born in sin and shapen in iniquity. Now again, I say the Bible is highly symbolic. And what's interesting, if you study the mystical tradition of Kabbalah, you'll understand that actually there are at least 7 layers of understanding within every story. And so what happens, as many of us did as children, whether it was in a Jewish context or a Christian context or some form of a Judeo-Christian context, we learn these stories the literal way so that we can then learn the deeper truth. This is also why Jesus taught in parables, right? He taught these stories, but there was always a layer underneath it. And so this idea was pointing us to something very interesting. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Now, in the Hebrew alphabet, we have 22 letters. The 21st letter is called sin or shin. Okay. And again, as I said, we have this mystical understanding that's also an astrological understanding, right? So this idea of all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God was based on this idea that we recognize that in 9 months we're born, yes? But we know that a full calendar year and an astrological year is 12, right? Okay. So there was this mystical idea that as we come in after 9 months, we haven't completed the full 12-year cycle. So what they were offering is this idea that all have come just to the 21st letter. We haven't completed the full cycle of 22. All have sinned, all have reached shin, and fallen short. And the idea, the mystical understanding is that we come back here to remember, to be restored back to our wholeness, to come back to Eden, right? That's the mystical understanding of both of these passages, right? That sin, again, that word sin, if you look in the Hebrew, was taking us back to the letter shin. And it was a symbolic way to talk about this idea that we come here and must remember in order to come back to wholeness. But it had nothing to do with shame, guilt, and there was something wrong with you. So we got to get all of that out of the way. Again, that can radically change your life if you just sit with that and understand that for a minute, right? The Bible has nothing to do with you being wrong. It has nothing to do with you feeling ashamed, and it has nothing to do with the acts of one man or one woman who are not literal people. Right? I mean, the Adam and Eve, it's awesome, right? Adam is Aries, Eve is Taurus, Mars and Venus, male and female, right? There's so much more symbolism there that is talking about the aspects of the masculine and feminine that deal within us. You can go back to one of our early messages 3 years ago, the creative principle. I taught on that specific thing. I broke down that story, and we talked about having the I am and the I have. You bring those together, you can create anything, right? That's what that story was about. But not about that there's something wrong with you. So then we have in A Course in Miracles, it says something else that's important, and we're going to anchor a part of what we're talking about today on this. It says in the text that the word sin should be changed to lack of love, because sin is a man-made word with threat connotations, which he made up himself. No real threat is involved anywhere. Nothing is gained by frightening yourselves, and it is very destructive to do so. Hear that. Nothing is gained by frightening yourselves, and it is very destructive to do so. So a belief in sin is frightening and it's destructive. And so then this is how we create hell in our lives. I say it all the time. Hell is not a real place, but it's a real experience. And that's based on what we believe to be true about life. Has anybody ever been in hell in their life? Because of the power of our thoughts, we created situations, circumstances in our lives that felt like hell. Hell is not a real place. Fire and brimstone, Lucifer, that's not a real place. But it can be a real experience based on what we think and believe to be true. So then that means that this belief in sin and being sinful as it creates hell in our lives, it's the opposite of heaven. Heaven is loving and constructive. Where this belief in sin, where this belief in hell, where this creation of hell is frightening and destructive, heaven is loving and constructive. And so the belief in sin creates hell, which means that then we've locked ourselves out of heaven. You can't hold this belief in being sinful. You can't hold this belief that by virtue of your birth, there is automatically something wrong with you, and the creator of the universe itself, source itself that lives within you, has something against you. You can't live and think that way and have a heavenly life. Yes. But what I love in A Course in Miracles, it says something very powerful. Heaven is a decision I must make. It's a decision we must make because our happiness depends on it. Our joy depends on it. Our ability to thrive depends on it. Our ability to have what we want. Our ability to be in the relationships that we want. Our ability to create what we want depends on deciding and choosing that we will live in heaven now. But that starts with our thoughts. It starts with what we believe to be true, and that's why we got to get rid of this sinful idea. That's why we got to get rid of this shame and guilt idea. That's why we got to get rid of, again, from day one, just an innocent baby, you were bad, wrong, and full of shame. We got to get rid of that. You hear how awful that is? That from day one, you couldn't do anything on your own. You innocently are here and came here, and you're condemned. No sense. Makes no sense. But we can understand that how planting the seed of that idea then teaches us and empowers us to create hell in our lives. But as adults, we're in control now. Yes. As those who understand that our thoughts create our reality, we're in control now. As those that understand that the universe is responding to what we believe and what we input into it, we can choose heaven today. Are you ready to choose heaven today? Yes, yes. And so I want to look at this idea. Look at this idea that if sin is lack of love, what does that mean? Because it requires us now, as we have this idea and we've gotten a lot of some of that old stuff and old belief and false teachings, limited teachings, I won't call it false, it was limited, right? It was based on a certain understanding in a certain time, right? We got to reframe our thoughts and our beliefs. And I want to just put something out here first, right? Because we hear this idea of sinlessness, and immediately we want to go to, well, wait, sinlessness guaranteed by God. Well, are you telling me that Hitler is sinless? You telling me that Donald Trump is sinless? Are you telling me that Bill Cosby and OJ are sinless? And what I want you to do, just for this month, get it for yourself first. Get it for yourself first. Understand it for yourself first. Right? Because Hitler has to understand it for Hitler, and Trump and OJ and Bill Cosby, they got to understand it for themselves. Otherwise, they're going to keep creating the hell in their lives. Get it for yourself first. Because you are the creator of your life experience and no one else. So worrying about whether or not that other person is sinless or not, or if that's true for them, you can't create in their experience. We got to get it for ourselves first. So if sin is a lack of love, let's examine that. Right? Let's think about some of the things that we may consider sin, and let's add and bring some ease to some of the things that we may have done in our lives, some of the things we may have said in our lives, some of the things we may have chosen to be in our lives. Now, the first one that comes to my mind, because I think in the Western world and in this country, we have so much stuff around sex and sexuality. So much stuff wrapped around that, right? And so you meet somebody and y'all hook up and you feel guilty afterwards. You don't feel good about it afterwards, right? And you think it's because, oh, this was a sin. I wasn't supposed to do this and God is mad at me and that's why I don't feel good. But if you're honest with yourself and you look at all the beliefs and thoughts that carried you into that experience, that you attracted into your life, can you see where there was lack of love before you ever even met that person? Ain't nothing wrong with sex. Ain't nothing wrong with sexuality and sensuality, right? That's not it, right? Technically it's a neutral event. There's nothing good or bad about it from a perspective, right? It's neutral, but it's what we bring to it through our thoughts. Right? So you're looking for somebody to complete you because you forgot that you were whole, and then you went out and had an experience and you feel bad. Why do you feel bad? Because you didn't remember that you were whole. Your sinlessness is about your wholeness and your holiness. And then out of your wholeness and your holiness, when you meet someone and have a beautiful experience, you still feel whole and holy afterwards. It has nothing to do with right or wrong about what you should or should not do. That's not what it is. But we can all be honest with ourselves and recognize that, oh, wait, that experience was a result of lack of love. It wasn't sin. But I had forgotten who I was. And I had forgotten to love myself first. And then letting that love carry me. Letting that love inform my decisions and letting that love attract beautiful, harmonious, loving, passionate experiences. So forgive yourself right now and let that go. Yes. Forgive yourself right now and let that go. Now here's another one. We can think about abusing substances, abusing drugs, abusing alcohol, abusing food. And we may have called that a sin. We may be living in shame and guilt, cussing ourselves out because we got that tub of ice cream out again. But can you see that all of the events that led you to getting that tub of ice cream, can you see where the lack of love was there? It wasn't sin, but there was a lack of love. And you thought that that pint of ice cream was going to love you back, was going to replace the love that you needed to recognize was always there. It's the love of God that dwells within you. It's the presence of God that dwells within you. Ain't nothing wrong with ice cream. Ice cream is good. Ice cream is delicious. Ice cream is not bad or sinful, but it becomes or feels that way, and we get into this place of shame and guilt based on this lack of love that then attracted that experience. Because you, in a place of love and in a place of being loved, you may have only gotten a scoop of ice cream instead of the whole pint, right? Right? Because all things can be done well and enjoyed within measure, within balance, right? Nothing is wrong. But it has everything to do with the thoughts that we bring to that experience. We think about drugs and alcohol, right? Pastor Yolanda and I love to tell this story many times about Ram Dass tells the story about his teacher who took his heroin. It was a bag of heroin, and just ate it. Nothing happened. He didn't get high. He didn't get sick. Now why? Because his thought pattern in terms of this lack of love was not in a place for him to need this drug or this hallucinogenic to put him into a place. He was already in the presence of God. He didn't need drugs to put him into the presence. Right? I mean, that's a lot of what a lot of psychedelics and hallucinogenics are really doing. But the truth is you can access that experience in the natural. Right? You don't need an external substance to do that. Right? So it didn't affect him. But when we're abusing alcohol or abusing drugs, again, we're either trying to mute the thoughts and the sounds of unworthiness, the thoughts and the sounds that I am sinful, the thoughts and words of our mother or our father or all these other people who told us all of these things about ourselves over our life, and we need to mute that sound. So we bury it with alcohol. We bury it with drugs. Lack of love. That's all that's going on. It's not sin. It's not sin. And then we recognize and we see that people can have experiences with drugs and alcohol and be unaffected and not become addicted. This may be a radical idea, but addiction is not genetic. Many times we've been taught that idea, right? But genetics really, from a spiritual perspective, start with vibration. And vibration is about belief. Our cells respond to what we believe, and then it shows up in the physical world as genetics, but it's not genetic, right? And so then this is why we can change any of those experiences, right? Okay, so maybe there is a genetic story in your family about alcoholism. You can release and forgive yourself and remind yourself that you're sinless. Your cells and your genetics will change as a result of what you choose to think and believe. It's a radical idea, but it's powerful. It's true. So don't limit yourself to the sin story, lack of love story, even within your family, that many people call genetics. Again, genetics, it's the physical manifestation of the mental cause. That's all it is. The physical manifestation of the mental cause. That means that if you want to change the physical, you got to work in the mental. So that's what we're talking about today. Now, I was reminded of a story, and I was sharing it with Pastor Yolanda. When we think about how this idea of sinlessness is implanted so early on. Now, if you grew up as I grew up in the Pentecostal church, the Holiness Church. Some would call fire and brimstone. And so you get these ideas very early on, right? That there's something wrong with you. And you need to get right with God and all of these things, right? But I was remembering something else. I think I have very vivid and clear memories of my life, definitely from about 3 years old. And life was really good. Happy, joy, right? And I can remember that it was when I was 5 years old. It was the summer that I turned 5. Was the first time that I ever really got in trouble. I have no memories of getting in trouble. I have no memories of getting a spanking pre-5. None, right? But from that moment that I had this sense of being bad and I developed an awareness of shame, that's when everything changed. Then I was lying. I was doing things that I wasn't supposed to do because a belief about myself had started. Now you mix that with this idea of you're going to hell and the devil and God is mad at you. I used to have nightmares about hell. I used to have nightmares that I would go up this mountain, up to heaven, waiting to be judged, and then the bottom would fall out and I'd go down in hell. As a 5 and 6 year old kid, right? Right, it's terror. Right, it is. But what we must recognize is that the story starts early. Your story or what you may remember, it may be a little different than mine. But if you think back through your life, this idea of being sinful or being bad or being wrong or needing to feel shameful or guilty, right? Many times, you get in trouble and it was like you had to feel and look bad enough, right? Our elders and our parents needed us to see that we really felt bad and really felt shame, right? That's what all of that was rooted in, right? It may have looked different in different families, but that's what it was rooted in. As I said in the beginning of the message, there's a profound opportunity for healing here. I am open and available to my healing. Can we say it again?
I am open and available to my healing.
Are you ready to release the idea of being sinful?
Yes.
And embrace this idea that your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. Now, I'm almost done, but I want to share this because this idea, my sinlessness is guaranteed by God. We hear this in lesson 93 in A Course in Miracles. And that lesson is light and joy and peace abide in me, right? That's all that abides in you, not sin, not shame, not guilt. And it says this, your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. Over and over, this must be repeated until it is accepted as true. Your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. Nothing can touch it, nor can change what God created as eternal. The self you made, evil and full of sin, is meaningless. Your sinlessness is guaranteed by God, and light and joy and peace abide in you. Don't lock yourself out of heaven. Make the choice. See, heaven is your home. But what happens is, as we live our lives with these thoughts about being sinful, about being bad, about shame and guilt, then everything is filtered through that belief, right? We understand, right, how colors happen, right? That blue and red make purple, right? And so if red is back here, if you have a blue filter, you can't see the red. Even though it's really there, you cannot see the red. You're going to see a completely different color until you remove that blue filter. This is what happens in our minds as we have this belief about I'm wrong. We have this belief about I'm not enough. We have a belief about my family story. We have a belief about my genetic story. We have a belief about our abuse story. We have a belief about all these different things. That's the filter, which basically turns out to, wait, but you don't understand, Pastor Greg. Wait, but you don't know what I did, Pastor Greg. Wait, but you don't know. Wait, but you don't know. But you don't know. But I did, and all the time, source. God, the universe, is reminding you, and again, as it says here, it needs to be said over and over again, your sinlessness is guaranteed by God. The universe is always saying to you, who told you you were naked? It's always asking that question. And that idea of being naked is that idea of there's something wrong with me, I need to hide. Who told you that? Who told you that there was something wrong with you? Oh my God, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. But when we believe that, we lock ourselves out of heaven. When we hold that thought for any reason, we lock ourselves out of the experience of heaven, which is just as available as the experience of hell that you may be experiencing right now. And that's a powerful and profound principle when we think about duality in this time-space experience, right? We live in a dual world. We live in a dual reality. But that means that whatever exists, if you're experiencing hell in your life, that means that heaven is also available and possible in your life. It's the principle of polarity. If the negative is here, the positive is here. We know that. Two sides of the same coin. It's the same energy. It's just about where are we focusing, then that's what we attract more of that experience. So in this moment, hear this good news.
Yes.
We're going to take a deeper journey into this idea of sinlessness this month, but hear this good news. That no matter how many times and in how many ways through your own thinking you have sentenced yourself with this idea of being sinful, it's still not the truth. No matter how many times through your own thoughts, through your own beliefs, through your own patterns, through your own habits, you've created hell in your life, and that can look a lot of different ways. It could look like debt. It could look like bad relationships. It could look like constantly being laid off. It could look like I don't know my purpose and I'm just all over the place. It could look like all these different things. No matter how you've created hell in your life, there's a constant that's the source within you. There's a constant that is the love within you. There's a constant that is the God within you that still knows the truth of you. And it's not moved by your thoughts about yourself. That's why I love that Adam and Eve story. God wasn't moved by their foolishness. Source is not moved by that because you remain as God created you, eternal, whole, complete, and sinless. And so as we recognize that this is a radical, revolutionary idea, we wanted to make sure that we hold the God Talk more than once this month. And so for those that are able to stay and desire to stay, you may have some questions. There may be some specificity around your life. You may have the yeah, but Pastor Greg, you don't know, going on in your head. Pastor Yolanda and I want to work with you to make sure that you get this, because when you get this, everything changes. There's more to it, and again, we're going to go deeper into it this month. But it first starts with the willingness. Are you willing to receive the healing and let go of the sin story? Are you willing to receive the healing and let go of the shame story, the guilt story? Sometimes it's not even about what you specifically did, but it's, in my family, almost everybody was in jail, and there's a lot of alcoholics in my family. You may not even been the person that did those things, but you've taken on this badge of shame. Are you ready to let that go? Because even just taking on that badge, that is the thoughts, habits, beliefs, the pattern that then is creating the hell experience in your life, locking you out of heaven. But heaven is here. But it's a decision that each and every one of us must make. Let's stand in this moment. Let's stand. Let's say it again. I am open and available, to my healing. My sinlessness is guaranteed by God. Try this on. I am sinless. I am free of guilt. Oh my God. I am free of shame. I am free today. Mother, Father, God, we stand here in this vibration of knowing who and what we are. We stand here in this vibration here and now of sinlessness. We stand here now in this vibration of wholeness and holiness. We stand here now in this vibration of freedom. Freedom from the circumstances of our birth. Freedom from the stories of our family. Freedom from what we did yesterday or last night or last year or last month. We stand here free today, recognizing now that we are sinless. I am so grateful and thankful for each and every person here in this room, these courageous beings that are courageously and fearlessly standing in the truth of their life. That they are not naked, but they are perfect, whole, and complete. That there is nothing wrong with them. They are perfect, whole, and complete. That the cells in their body respond to what they say. We let go of the genetic story today. We let go of the family story today. And we write what it is that we desire to be. We write what it is that we desire to have. I am knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that as each person has stood here now, courageously affirmed the truth of their life, that those words are traveling out through the universe here and now just as sound and vibration travels unending throughout the universe. And so I know that our angels, our guides, our ancestors that are all a part of you and all are you are responding now and coming to our aid, beginning to heal the story within our own minds and our own body, and beginning to heal the story within our own relationships, heal the story within our own families, heal the story within our own businesses, heal the story within our own passion and purpose, heal the story within our very bodies. I know that our word is beginning to do the work for us. We are not looking for the how, but standing in the knowingness that this is true. And as we stand firmer and dig our roots deeper into this reality that our sinlessness is guaranteed by you, Mother, Father, God, 100% guaranteed, our lives must expand in new and profound ways. I am just so grateful for the transformation that is already taking place and that will take place in the lives of each and every being here. I see it. I know it. I feel it. I see hearts and minds being broken open here and now. I'm seeing chains broken. Chains that were standing here unknown for generations. They're now broken. The story is old. It's over. Yes. Doesn't matter if you were adopted. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm hearing the stories. I'm hearing them break. As this filter is being removed, clarity is coming forward. And we stand here now, having let go of all of those thoughts and ideas, and now choosing heaven. And as we have chosen heaven, I hear the words of the old saints, oh, what a time it will be when all God's children get to heaven. But as we are creating heaven here and now, oh, what a time it will be in our lives. Oh, what a time it will be as I see it in my mind's eye, as we are now celebrating life. Oh, what a time it is as we are living joyously in our life. Oh, what a time it is as abundance is flowing in our lives. Oh, what a time it is as we have let go of the story and chosen heaven. No longer are we locked out of heaven, but we are living in heaven. We are basking in heaven. We are resting in heaven. Oh, what a time it is. Oh, what a time it is as we are able to love our brothers and sisters easily and effortlessly. Oh, what a time it is as we now can see the sinlessness of our brother and sister, as we have accepted the sinlessness of ourselves. Oh, what a time it is as peace and forgiveness and love reign supreme over this land. Oh, what a time it is as we have chosen heaven. I see each and every one of you and those within the sound of my voice living in heaven. As you have made that choice today, expect all of the fruits of Eden. Expect the life that is easy and effortless. Expect that your mother, your father God, that thing which you come from, that you are a thought in its mind, will give you everything you need. Every provision is made for you. That is heaven. Expect it. Expect harmony. Expect unity. Expect more than enough. Expect that the universe responds to you instantly. Oh, what a time. I am so grateful and thankful for this moment. I am so grateful and thankful for this word. And we allow this word to work in, through, and as our lives and manifest as beauty. For this, we are so very grateful. We lift up our voices now and we say, Amen. Amen. Ashe. Ashe. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you, God.